Hello and welcome back to Sacred Readings and Wisdom Stories. I'm Eric Massanari, chaplain of Kidron Bethel Village in North Newton, Kansas. And this is a video series where you get to hear and contemplate poetry, scripture, wisdom stories from varied traditions around the world. And allow those stories to inspire your creativity, your imagination, your prayer, and your spiritual growth. Today I have a wonderful story of, you might say, a holy fool figure in history. And we have heard one other holy fool story in this series, one about St. Francis of Assisi, a wise or holy fool from the Christian tradition. This week, you're going to hear a story about Mulla Nasruddin. Nasruddin was a wise holy fool from the 13th century. He lived his whole life in what's now modern-day Turkey. Nasruddin was from the Sufi tradition of Islam. The Sufi stream would be the mystical stream of the Islamic faith. And there are just wonderful stories that abound around Mulla Nasruddin, some of which may be related to his historical exploits and teachings as a philosopher and spiritual teacher. Most likely, stories like the one you'll hear today are part of the lore and tales that over time emerged around him as a historical figure. This particular story is entitled Looking for the Key. Looking for the Key. And I'll be reading a version of this story from a collection of stories assembled by Heather Forrest, a very gifted storyteller. And you can likely find other versions of this story elsewhere if you searched online. As we prepare to hear this, you'll hear it twice, as we do with each of our readings each week. But let's just take a moment in time to be in silence. We are likely coming here from many other tasks in our day and the busyness of a day, the fullness. And so before I read this story a first time, just take some deep, wakeful, aware breaths, noticing the in-breath and the out-breath. Noticing your body as you sit, stand, whatever you may be doing right now, just noticing the sensations of being present to this very moment in time. Just allow your breath to find its natural rhythm. And may we be open in heart and mind and being to receive the wisdom of this story today. Looking for the key. With this first reading, simply notice what calls to your attention in the story, what captures your imagination first as you hear it. Mulla Nasruddin, the wise sage, crept around in the dust, inspecting the ground. His persistence caused another man to stop and ask, "What are you doing?" Mulla replied, "I have lost the key to a great treasure. I'm trying to find it here." "A great treasure," exclaimed the man. "Let me help you search for it." There was a woman who also passed on her way to market. Seeing the two men crawling around in the dust, she asked, "What are you doing?" The man replied, "We are searching for the key to a great treasure. It's been lost, and I'm helping the sage find it." "A great treasure," exclaimed the woman. "Let me help you search for the key too." A large caravan came along. The head camel driver stopped and, seeing three people crawling around in the dust, inquired, "Why are the three of you crawling on the ground?" The woman replied, "We are searching for the key to a great treasure. It's been lost, and I'm helping this sage and this man find it." "A great treasure," exclaimed the camel driver. Like the others, he thought, perhaps, if it's found, we can share it. He invited everyone in the caravan to help. "Let us all assist you in this important task." A large crowd now crawled around in the dust looking for the key, and after a long while of unsuccessful searching, a young boy asked Mulla Nasruddin, "Are you certain that you dropped the key right here?" Mulla stopped, poking in the dust, and replied, "Well, no, I lost the key somewhere inside my house." The crowd stopped searching. They stood up, and someone asked, "Then why in the world are we wasting our time looking for it outside?" "Well, that's an excellent question," Mulla replied. "Your insight is clear. It is too dark to look for the key in my house. There's far more light out here." Now, as you hear the story a second time, you might move a little deeper into it. Imagine yourself witnessing these events unfolding, being one of the bystanders, maybe one of the people in the caravan who stop and help search for the key. And notice what that's like. What is your reaction when we come to the end of the story? Mulla Nasruddin, the wise sage, crept around in the dust, inspecting the ground. His persistence caused another man to stop and ask, "What are you doing?" Mulla replied, "I've lost the key to a great treasure and I'm trying to find it here." "A great treasure!" exclaimed the man. "Well, let me help you search for it." A woman passed on her way to market. Seeing two men crawling around in the dust, she asked, "What are you doing?" The man replied, "We are searching for the key to a great treasure. It has been lost, and I'm helping this sage find it." "A great treasure!" exclaimed the woman. "Well, let me help you search for the key, too." Then a large caravan came along. The head camel driver stopped and, seeing three people crawling around in the dust, inquired, "Why are you crawling on the ground?" The woman replied, "We are searching for the key to a great treasure. It has been lost, and I'm helping this sage and this man to find it." "A great treasure, you say?" exclaimed the camel driver. Like the others, he thought, perhaps when it's found, we can share it. He invited everyone in the caravan to help. "Let us all assist you in this very important task," he said. A large crowd now crawled around in the dust looking for the key, and after a long while of unsuccessful searching, a young boy asked Mulla Nasruddin, "Are you certain you dropped the key right here?" Mulla stopped poking in the dust and he replied, "Well, no, I lost the key somewhere in my house." The crowd stopped searching. They stood up and someone asked, "Then why are we wasting our time looking for it outside?" "Well, that's an excellent question," Mullah Nasruddin replied. "Your insight is clear. It is too dark to look for the key in my house. There's far more light out here." Like so many of the Nasruddin stories that you might find, this is one that might leave you chuckling when you hear it. I know it does me each time. And then, as we laugh, we realize we might be laughing at something that hits home a bit, a deep insight, a wisdom into human nature. And I think this story is no exception, that insight into our tendency as human beings to sometimes search for the satisfaction of what we might most desire, most need, to search for it and seek after it in places that ultimately are not terribly helpful or beneficial. Sometimes maybe we even search for the satisfaction of our deepest desires in places that are harmful, or we do it in ways that are harmful to ourselves or to others. I notice in this story how, in Nasruddin's foolishness, others are attracted to it and they gather and they're all participating in this rather foolish endeavor without ever first asking for more details. And how there can be this kind of collective futile search for the satisfaction of our deepest human desires. And then I also notice in this story how really the person to break through that foolishness, the ignorance of the story is a young child who just simply asks the question, "Are you sure you lost the key out here?" And if you listen to wisdom stories from around the world, it's quite often, children play that role in these stories to break through illusion or misperception. Another great example of that would be the classic story of Hans Christian Andersen of the emperor who wears no clothes. And in that story too, it's a child whose observation breaks through the illusion of the crowd in the story. Of course, this story too makes me think, as a Christian myself, makes me think of particular scriptures, and I thought I'd share a couple of those verses with you from 1 Corinthians, where the Apostle Paul is talking to the Corinthian church, and in that particular letter, he's often talking about and juxtaposing the foolishness of the world, things that the world considers wise, and the true wisdom of God, which might appear foolish in the eyes of the world. These are verses that come to mind whenever I hear a good holy fool or wise fool story like this one. I'll read a few of these verses from 1 Corinthians. Consider your own call, brothers and sisters. Not many of you were wise by human standards. Not many were powerful. Not many of noble birth. But God chose what's foolish in the world to shame the wise. God chose what's weak in the world to shame the strong. God chose what is low and despised in the world, things that are not, to reduce to nothing things that are. Then again, a little bit later in this letter, Paul writes, "Yet among the mature we do speak wisdom, though it is not a wisdom of this age or of the rulers of this age who are doomed to perish, but we speak God's wisdom, secret, sometimes hidden, which God decreed before the ages for our glory." And then in chapter 3 of the letter, "Do you not know that you are God's temple? God's Spirit dwells within you. If anyone destroys God's temple, God will destroy that person, for God's temple is holy, and you are that temple. So do not deceive yourselves. If you think you are wise in this age, you should become fools, so that you may become wise. For the wisdom of this world is foolishness with God. If you think you are wise in this age, you should become fools, so that you may become wise." I think we might contemplate that and reflect on those words and figures like Mulla Nasruddin, the power of a story like this or a message like the Apostle Paul's to break through some of our ignorance and illusion, to help reveal to us in the light of love where we might truly seek for the satisfaction of our deepest desires for wholeness, for healing, for peace. May you know the Spirit's guidance on your search, on your journey for these things. And I hope you can join us again for the next story we tell on sacred readings and wisdom tales. Take care.